In a significant diplomatic development, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on Sunday that Ukraine is willing to engage in peace talks with Russia contingent upon Moscow's commitment to a 30-day ceasefire starting from May 12. This announcement marks a rare moment of potential dialogue since the onset of the Russian invasion over 3 years ago, a conflict that has resulted in widespread devastation and immense loss of life. Zelensky characterized Russia's recent willingness to propose direct talks as a positive sign, reflecting a shift in the narrative that has dominated the region since the conflict began. In a statement on social media, he emphasized there is no point in continuing the killing even for a single day. We expect Russia to confirm a ceasefire full-lasting and reliable. He further noted that the entire world has been waiting for this for a very long time, underscoring the urgency of halting hostilities as a precursor to meaningful negotiations. The backdrop to this diplomatic overture includes pressure from European leaders who recently convened in Kyiv to advocate for an unconditional ceasefire. Zelensky's chief of staff Andriy Yermak reiterated that Ukraine would only proceed to the negotiating table if Russia agrees to the proposed ceasefire. First a 30-day ceasefire, then everything else, he stated, highlighting the ceasefire as a critical step toward ending the war. In a turn of events, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed his willingness to resume negotiations that had stalled since March 2022. However, he did not specifically address the ceasefire proposal when speaking at a press conference. Instead, Putin called for unconditional talks with Kyiv, stating, "We do not exclude that during these talks we will be able to agree on some new ceasefire." This ambiguity leaves room for skepticism regarding Russia's intentions and commitment to peace. Turkey, which has maintained a delicate balance between the two nations, is positioning itself as a facilitator for the upcoming talks. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan remarked in discussions with both Putin and French President Emmanuel Macron that a historic turning point has been reached in the efforts to end the conflict. Erdogan's office announced that Turkey is ready to host negotiations aimed at achieving a lasting solution, framing the current moment as a unique opportunity for peace. The ongoing violence, characterized by a recent surge of drone attacks from Russia, complicates the prospect of a ceasefire. Ukrainian officials reported that following a brief period of relative calm, Russia launched over 100 drones targeting Ukrainian territories. This escalation highlights the fragility of the current situation and the challenges that lie ahead in achieving a sustainable peace agreement. As global leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, express cautious optimism about the potential for a resolution, the situation remains fluid. Trump labeled the developments as a potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine, indicating a willingness to support both sides in finding common ground. The stakes are undeniably high as the war in Ukraine not only affects the immediate region but also reverberates across global political landscapes. With a ceasefire viewed as an essential first step, the coming days will be pivotal in determining whether diplomatic efforts can yield a path toward lasting peace or if the cycle of conflict will continue unabated. As negotiations loom, the international community watches with bated breath, hoping that the calls for an end to hostilities will translate into tangible action on the ground. In recent days, the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has escalated dramatically, with European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky proposing a 30-day ceasefire to Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, the Kremlin's response has been nothing short of alarming, as it has intensified its military operations, including a significant drone attack that has left the Ukrainian landscape reeling. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys condemned the Kremlin's actions, stating that Putin's reply to the ceasefire proposal was a swarm of 100 drones raining down on Ukraine overnight. He characterized these actions as part of Putin's strategy to delay any meaningful peace negotiations, asserting talking peace while Russian bombs keep falling on Ukrainian civilians is a farce. Budrys' remarks highlight the stark reality faced by Ukraine, where any hope for a diplomatic solution is overshadowed by ongoing violence. The ceasefire offer, set to take effect on May 12, follows a coalition meeting held on May 10 where leaders from across Europe and the United States expressed their support for Ukraine. Zelensky urged Russia to accept the proposal, warning that failure to do so would lead to new sanctions targeting Russia's energy and banking sectors. In the wake of these diplomatic overtures, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov dismissed the ceasefire initiative, insisting that any agreement must support Russia's strategic objectives and allow for future military operations. Russian military activity has surged in recent weeks, as evidenced by reports from the General Staff of Ukraine detailing intense fighting along the entire front line. The Institute for the Study of War noted that Russian forces have been conducting offensive operations across various fronts, with particular focus on Kharkiv and Luhansk oblasts. Russian forces reportedly intensified attacks in these regions, further complicating the already dire humanitarian situation. Adding to the gravity of the situation is the anticipated delivery of Iranian short-range ballistic missile launchers to Russia, which could significantly bolster Russian offensive capabilities. This development underscores the deepening military cooperation between Russia and Iran, raising concerns about a potential escalation of hostilities in Ukraine. As the conflict continues to unfold, the international community watches closely. The European Union and the United States are preparing additional sanctions against Russia, contingent on its response to the ceasefire proposal. The stakes are high and the potential for increased military engagement looms large, as both sides prepare for what could be a critical juncture in this protracted conflict. The coming days will be pivotal as the world awaits Russia's decision. Will it heed the calls for peace, or will it double down on its military aggression? The answer to this question may not only reshape the trajectory of the Russo-Ukrainian war but also redefine international relations in the region for years to come. As the conflict enters its third year, the urgency for a resolution has never been more pressing. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has taken a potentially pivotal turn as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed cautious optimism regarding Russia's recent overtures for peace talks. Zelensky described Moscow's consideration of ending the war as a positive sign following a statement from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who proposed direct negotiations scheduled for May 15 in Istanbul. This announcement marks a significant moment in a conflict that has persisted since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Zelensky's comments came after Putin's late-night address, in which the Russian leader extended an invitation for serious negotiations. However, Zelensky emphasized that any meaningful dialogue must be preceded by a comprehensive and credible ceasefire starting on May 12. The entire world has been waiting for this for a very long time, he asserted, underscoring the urgent need to halt the violence. His call for a ceasefire aligns with a broader push from Western allies who convened in Kyiv over the weekend and proposed a 30-day pause in hostilities. Andriy Yermak, a key advisor to Zelensky, reinforced this stance, stating, "First a ceasefire for 30 days. Then everything else." This perspective highlights Ukraine's insistence that any negotiations must not be used as a pretext for Russia to continue its military operations. In contrast, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated that negotiations should occur before a ceasefire, indicating a fundamental divergence in the two nations' approaches to the peace process. Putin, in his own remarks, refrained from directly addressing the Western call for a ceasefire but acknowledged the possibility that talks could lead to a new truce. He proposed Istanbul as the venue, signaling Turkey's continuing role as a mediator in the conflict. The Russian leader's comments suggest an attempt to navigate the complex geopolitical landscape while maintaining a position of strength. As the situation unfolds, the responses from both sides reveal deep-seated mistrust. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, warned that any pressure from the West would be ineffective. Meanwhile, Western leaders, including UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, have united in demanding an immediate ceasefire. They underscored that failure to agree to a truce could result in new and massive sanctions against Russia's energy and banking sectors. The backdrop of these developments includes a series of military engagements and accusations of ceasefire violations from both sides. Reports indicate that despite a temporary reduction in fighting, over 100 drone strikes launched by Russia and numerous accusations of breaches have continued to escalate tensions. This ongoing cycle of violence complicates the prospects for peace, with both nations accusing each other of failing to adhere to previous ceasefire proposals. Zelensky's stance reflects a broader narrative that prioritizes the restoration of peace over continued military aggression. "There is no point in continuing the killing even for a single day," he remarked, encapsulating the humanitarian urgency of the situation. However, the response from Moscow suggests that peace negotiations could be used strategically, with Russia potentially leveraging its military posture to gain concessions. As international leaders continue to pressure both parties for a truce, the coming days will be critical. The scheduled talks in Istanbul may either pave the way for a long-awaited resolution or further entrench the hostilities, depending on the willingness of both sides to compromise. With the world watching closely, the developments in the next few weeks will likely shape the future trajectory of the conflict and the humanitarian implications for the region. In a significant development in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed cautious optimism regarding Russia's recent overtures for peace talks. In a statement made on social media platform X, Zelensky emphasized the necessity of a ceasefire, calling it the very first step in truly ending any war. He underscored that the world has been waiting for such a moment for a long time, and he urged Russia to confirm a full, lasting and reliable ceasefire to commence on May 12, 2025. Zelensky's remarks came in response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's proposal for direct talks scheduled for May 15 in Istanbul, which he offered without preconditions. While Zelensky welcomed the gesture as a positive sign, he maintained that a ceasefire must precede any negotiations. "There is no point in continuing the killing even for a single day," he asserted, reflecting a growing global consensus that an end to hostilities is critical for any sustainable resolution. The backdrop to this diplomatic exchange is marked by ongoing military actions, with Russia having resumed drone strikes across Ukraine shortly after its brief ceasefire, which was criticized by Ukrainian officials as largely ineffective. Reports indicate that during a single day Russia launched 108 drones aimed at various targets, with Ukrainian air defenses successfully intercepting a significant portion of them. Both sides have accused each other of violating ceasefire terms, complicating the path to peace. International leaders have reacted to the situation, with U.S. President Donald Trump expressing hope for a resolution, stating, "It's a potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine." He emphasized the importance of focusing on rebuilding and trade, while also calling for a halt to the violence. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron reiterated the need for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, stressing that discussions should not occur in the midst of ongoing hostilities. Responses to Putin's peace proposal have been mixed. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys dismissed it as a farce, criticizing Russia for failing to commit to a ceasefire while proposing talks. Similarly, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz described the offer as a good sign but far from sufficient, urging Moscow to agree to the ceasefire to allow for meaningful negotiations. As the lead-up to the proposed talks begins, it is evident that both Ukraine and Russia are entrenched in their respective positions. Ukraine insists on a ceasefire as a precursor to discussions, while Russia seeks to address the root causes of the conflict in any negotiation framework. The stark differences in approach highlight the complexities of achieving a lasting peace. The upcoming days are critical, with the international community applying pressure on both sides to reach a consensus. The potential for a ceasefire remains tenuous yet essential. As Zelensky stated, "We expect Russia to confirm a ceasefire," indicating Ukraine's readiness to engage if their conditions are met. The world watches closely, hopeful that a breakthrough may finally be on the horizon, yet wary of the challenges ahead. Whether the proposed talks can transform into a meaningful dialogue or simply serve as a temporary reprieve from violence remains to be seen, but the stakes have never been higher for both nations and their people.